Welcome back. In today's focus, we're looking ahead to Kosovo's snap parliamentary election. Voters will be going to the polls on Sunday at a time of severe economic hardship. Unemployment, according to the World Bank, is 48%, and Kosovo is dogged by rampant corruption and a weak rule of law. On top of that, it remains in legal limbo after declaring independence from Serbia nearly 3 years ago. Belgrade still insists Kosovo is part of its territory, and on the ground, divisions remain between the Albanian majority and the Serb minority.
This hospital is being built in Gracanica, the biggest Serbian enclave in Kosovo. Next door, 70 empty houses with no electricity. Those homes were financed by Serbia. The hospital is being built by Kosovan workers with Kosovan funds.
The works are being paid for with the budget of the Republic of Kosovo under the surveillance of Gracanica Council.
The Serbian enclave of Gracanica came under Kosovan law in January 2010. The Serbian mayor was elected in a Kosovan vote. At the town hall there are 66 staff, all Serbian. Belgrade called for a boycott of the elections and doesn't recognise the mayor.
Nobody has the divine right to say it's me who decides the future of the Kosovan Serbs. The Serbs who stayed here and who have decided to live here have the right to have their voices heard and decide for themselves. Basically, we have the right to choose what door to knock on to solve our problems.
In Gracanica, there's another town hall recognised by Belgrade, but not Pristina. 100 people work here, but 850 pre-war employees still get paid a salary, even though they've been living in Serbia for the last 10 years. The mayor is elected in a separate Serbian vote and has an €8 million budget.
The other mayor is elected by the so-called government in Pristina, the so-called Kosovan government in Pristina. We have no points of contact and no cooperation with them, because for us, that administration doesn't exist. Literally, it doesn't exist.
In Gracanica, the pro-Belgrade mayor hasn't financed any public works for 3 years. But the pro-Kosovo mayor has installed pavements and built a bridge and a sports centre. In the past, the Serbian population boycotted Kosovan elections. Now they're divided, but many are planning to vote.
People will vote, just because there's no work. We want work and we want to vote.
After the economic crisis, Belgrade can no longer pay for local services in a Kosovo that has escaped its control. Even though jobs are scarce and racial divisions persist with the Kosovan Albanians, many Serbians will take a radical step on Sunday and vote in the elections of an independent Kosovo.
Joining us now for more on Kosovo's tough road ahead is George Frederick Dewsbury. He's an expert on Eastern Europe and a researcher at the Institute CELSEC here in France. Welcome to France 24.
Good morning.
There are a lot of challenges ahead here for Kosovo, but if we look at its relationship with Serbia first and foremost, how do you think the election will play into that?
Well, as we saw in the report, there are Serbs who say we don't recognize them, they don't exist, but because Serbia wants to become a candidate for EU status, two conditions. You have to find General Mladic, wherever he is, and you have to make nice with the Kosovars. So the people in Belgrade are caught between the will of their people, which says this is ours, this is where our churches are, this is where our beginnings are, and at the same time, we want to enter Europe. So it's a very difficult thing for the people in Belgrade.
But Serbia has come out to say clearly that it doesn't support this election.
Yeah, but at the same time, the person in the Belgrade government who's in charge of Kosovo says that if people vote, nothing will be held against them. So there is back channel, in fact, relationship between the two governments.
We're also looking ahead to EU-brokered talks between Pristina and Belgrade. Do you think the election could have an impact on that?
They're going to happen anyway because the international community has pumped $4.1 billion into that area in the last 10 years. And the investment is too large. There are Europeans on the ground with the EULEX, KFOR, and also NATO. They're going to happen no matter what happens in the election.
Now, the election has been billed as a democracy test for Kosovo in and of itself. Do you think that's a test that Kosovo will pass at the end?
Anybody who can vote can be called democratic, but you have to look at the political leadership, which includes some indicted war criminals that are running in some of the major parties. Kosovo remains divided by clans. Especially, I have the name here, the Alliance for the Future of Kosovo is headed by a person who was indicted at The Hague in 2005. And several of the parliamentary candidates are under investigation by the war crimes people at The Hague. So yeah, they'll vote. There's 29 parties, 8 major Kosovar parties, and like most of the people in the situation, they either use the word democratic, liberal, or republic, or future. But there's no political tradition. There's no capacity to form a real government with a real program, with a real discipline.
Seeing that the political landscape in Kosovo appears to be so fragmented, do you think there will be a legitimate government at the end of all of this?
What is legitimate? As we've seen in Côte d'Ivoire, legitimacy can have a number of different concepts. Yeah, there'll be a legitimate government, but you have to understand that the Kosovo government has been recognized by only 1/3 of the world community. 2/3 of the world community refuses to accept the status of government for Kosovo. Yeah.
Now, some parties as well, they've pledged to work for EU membership a few years down the line. How close are we to that, or rather, how far away are we from that?
I think we're quite far, especially when you see that the Albanians themselves were rejected for membership in NATO because they have imperfect governmental institutions. And we must remember that yesterday, one of the election observers, Bosniak, was assassinated in his car in the northern part of Kosovo. So they're a long way away.
If we look at some of the other challenges then, of course, the economic climate is stern, to say the least, in Kosovo. 48% unemployment, at least that's what the World Bank says. That's a huge challenge in and of itself.
And you have half the population under the age of 24. The mean age of Kosovo is 26.3 years. And there are going to be 200,000 people coming into the job market in the next 5 years. And where are the jobs? That's where you have all the corruption. Albania is, with Kosovo, the major transit route for everything from prostitution to drugs. Roughly 80% of the drugs in Northern Europe come through Kosovo and Albania. So if you don't have an economy, you go to the corruption.
Do you think then that the election, could that lead to an improvement, or are we going to see more of the same in the next few years to come?
This is not a normal microstate. This is a microstate that was born of the attacks by Milosevic back in 1987, 1989. It was liberated by NATO bombing in 1999, and it is surrounded by problems on all sides. It's a very nasty neighborhood, so I'm fairly pessimistic.
But of course, couldn't it lead to some progress, though, seeing that there is, after all, going to be a vote?
A vote in an insane asylum is a vote. A vote in a corrupt society is a vote. As long as the international community remains dedicated to Kosovo and pumps in the billions of dollars, of course it will continue. But the first thing that has to happen is a relationship between Belgrade and Pristina. And right now, Kosovo cannot export its goods by land through Serbia because the border is blocked. Sir, it can't get worse. It can't get worse.
All right, George Frederick Dewsbury, thanks very much indeed for speaking to us here at France 24 today and for speaking to us here at Focus. And with that, we're going to wrap up the program for now. Do stay with us. We'll bring you more news in just a moment.